to episode 7 of Tales from the Gig. You may notice we have an in-studio guest, our first in-studio guest from the future, because his episode doesn't air until next week. So he has timed. I know. He has
Marty, we've got to get back to the place.
Doc Brown has time traveled from the future. Joel Edwards, everyone. And you're probably wondering, hey, what's Joel Edwards doing in Pennsylvania? Well, I'll tell you what Joel Edwards is doing in Pennsylvania. He came up to play a gig with Kevin and I.
Yeah.
Our first full band gig up here was, at this point, we'll say last week on Friday
21st.
night. Yeah, the 21st of February at Route 61 Roadhouse in Sunbury. Joel, is this your first gig in Pennsylvania?
It is my first gig in Pennsylvania.
And how did Pennsylvania find you?
Cold, chilly, but the people were warm and welcoming.
That's what we were going for. So we had a good time. Joel flew up into Baltimore on Wednesday.
And boy, are my arms tired.
Waka, 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 waka.
But
We got together to rehearse on Thursday, gigged Friday.
we did that online. I don't know if
We
anybody's
did.
seen it.
Yeah, if anybody tuned on Facebook, we apologize. We may have been overserved.
It'll be on our our YouTube channel here
Yes,
probably this
it
next
will.
couple days.
Ignore my eyes.
No, wait a minute. It should be before the.
Yes.
it
Yeah,
airs.
it's on our YouTube channel.
We're in the future right now.
Right. Yeah, but not the future that Joel came from.
Right.
To air.
Well, sometimes I go out by myself and I look across the border. And I think of all the things, what you're doing. In my head, I paint a picture. But since I've come home, where my body's been a mess, and I miss your ginger hair, miss the way you like to dress. Won't you come on over? Stop making a fool out of me. Why don't you come on over, Valerie? Valerie. Valerie. Yeah. Valerie. Why don't you come on over, Valerie?
Yeah, it was a fun gig. It was our first time
Right on.
up there at Route 61 Roadhouse.
Uh-huh.
We recorded it, so there will be video and audio.
I think we surprised a lot of people. They weren't expecting
Us.
that type of
Yeah.
music,
Yeah, no, it was-
quality, etc.
Yes, indeed.
That was a lot of the comments.
And then,
Double takes.
yeah, lots of double takes. then Saturday after the gig, we recorded some podcasts and recorded our first cover video that will be going up on YouTube once we get the hours and hours of video footage edited.
And we had a special guest camera operator.
We did. My son Logan had his first camera operation experience. Logan Asher. We'll pop up his picture.
Yeah, we'll do a little.
Right.
Put him in action or something like that. He did awesome.
He did. He
really
did a really good job. He ran the steady cam, as it were. But yeah, so that was our week. But this week we are talking to Mike Boutte of Please Please and Sound House and running his recording studio.
And We All.
Is that the other? That's the other band. We All. Yes, indeed. He gave us music from them as well.
Right.
That's a project you were in with him, wasn't it?
That's why I mentioned it.
Shameless plug.
Yes,
Did it?
indeed.
Perfect. And we had a good talk with Mike. It was long and effortless, and Mike is a good guy. He's a
Fantastic.
yeah. He
Very chill, dude.
very chill.
dude.
Yeah, he shed or gave some insight as to how he sees the music industry and how he's bridging that gap, because he's bigger than a project studio, smaller than a pro studio, I guess you could say, but he's definitely got the ear and the gear. And the sounds coming out of Sound House are pretty fantastic. Joel, you've been involved in every Sound House, haven't you?
I was a founding member.
A founding member. So that's what you guys will hear more about Sound House later on
Awesome
in the
stuff.
episode once we're talking to Mike.
And notice our new surroundings.
Yes,
We're the Rebel Base.
We're in phase 2.
We're in phase 2 of Rebel Base Studios here. Phase 3 will come sometime this year, but phase 2 is much nicer. Joel helped with some lighting design and setup. So, yeah, but if you guys don't have anything to add,
I don't. I'm good.
cool. This is episode 7 of Tales from the Gig with Mike Boutte.
Right on.
We are here with the wonderful, the talented, the multifaceted Mike Boutte. Mike, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are phenomenal.
We're working through all these little.
Yes, all of our
Issues
wonderful
right
technical
now.
difficulties that we're having on this beautiful Monday evening.
Must be the super
Yeah.
moon.
That's what it is.
You would think that by 2020 someone would have sorted all this out with podcasting as ubiquitous as it is.
No. Well, if we could afford to have a producer in a podcasting studio, we would have somebody to work it out for
Oh,
us. But here we
That's
are.
true. That's
So-
true.
So, Mike, as a devoted follower to our #1 best-selling podcast, you know the format. But tell the kind folk out there who might not know your resume how you got started, what your background is, and what you do.
Oh man, I am from Shreveport, Louisiana. That's still where my heart lives, is Louisiana, not necessarily Shreveport. But I'm a second-generation drummer. My dad was a drummer. Got my first snare drum in 2nd grade. I went way back. Did I go too far back?
No,
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 that's
John
cool,
Blackman took us back to 2,
Yeah.
so you didn't go that far back.
Right on, right on. Oh, you know what? I was in preparation for this. I actually reached out to my mom because there was a note in my baby book that at 2.5 I started keeping time to whatever was on the headphones.
Nice,
And my
Right on.
dad swears that it was crosstown traffic,
nice.
Oh.
but no one knows for sure.
That's
but
a
yeah,
that's a
clapping
better
along.
story than if it was like Wheels on the Bus or something like that.
Right, right, yeah.
At least it wasn't Barney or anything.
Right.
It's before Barney.
Well, my mom said, well, it was the 70s, so there was probably lots of drums in it. And I was like, okay, I don't think that's how that works, but okay, cool.
Sure it was.
But I started, like a lot of people, in band in 6th grade. I ended up at a magnet school with the really great music program under the great Tilmer Keels in Shreveport. Got to take beginning percussion, did, concert band and jazz band all through that. And high school was super informative because we didn't have a football team. So to replace sort of like rallies or whatever it is that people went to regular high schools did, they would have lunches like every quarter where you would start lunch and then the rest of the day was just bands playing in our courtyard or whatever.
That's
So
really
it was
cool.
Cool.
always playing stuff. And then ended up in Dallas, Texas with a couple of bands, and then back to Shreveport, and then to Nashville. And then I took a really long break from music, and then I don't know. It was probably 2007 where I picked back up in music when I got to Atlanta again, and have been doing it again ever since. Playing with a lot of different bands. Currently playing guitar with Please Please out of Atlanta, picking up drum gigs where I can, as you know, Colin.
Indeed.
Yeah. I mean, that's the really short, boring version.
Right on. So the Magnet High School, that's really cool because we haven't heard that story yet.
Yeah.
We've been intrigued at everyone's kind of different path of how they came about.
Yeah.
Was it like a performing arts magnet school or just like a general magnet school or?
It was general magnet school. My thing that I love to tell people, kind of biting a hole through my tongue, but I started in the jazz band there at Caddo Magnet High the year after Brian Blade left.
Okay.
As the drummer. I actually auditioned with Dorsey Summerfield the summer after Brian Blade graduated, and I was fortunately good enough to go straight into jazz band instead of doing the regular concert band trial, and then you get into the jazz band later.
Right.
I also found out it was because they didn't have another drummer. I mean, no one can replace. They should have canceled the program
Right.
after
Just
Brian
stop
Blade
all
left.
music.
Right. But ended up playing with just some amazing cats, like just way in over my head as a freshman in high school. And, I don't have to tell you guys, like that's sink or swim is probably one of the best and worst ways to learn.
Totally.
Because you get yelled at a lot, but you fix your mistakes real quick.
Yep. Yeah, that almost shitting your pants all the time is a great position to be in.
I still experience that.
Yeah, pretty regularly.
right.
I've had that happen at Mike's house a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can't talk about Joel during this interview, though.
No, we won't. We've talked about Joel too much in this goddamn podcast.
But yeah, having someone tell you, Brian used to play it like this, and having grown up in Shreveport, even as a freshman in high school, you already knew who Brian Blade was.
Right.
So that was a great education. We went to all the festivals. We played the presidential inaugural festival. I think that was my freshman year that happened, and won a bunch of awards. And just the caliber of folks that came out of that high school, even the ones that didn't follow music as a vocation. It's just like thinking back on that, like the people that I got to play with when I was a young person. Just kind of incredible, and super thankful for the experience there. Like from the band directors to the sax players, and just amazing folks that loved music and wanted to give it everything they had. And so that kind of set me on my course for being a snob and a jerk for the rest of my life.
Right.
Wow.
So we can thank Shreveport for everything we've dealt with.
That's where I got it from too.
Did they
Different school,
did they specifically have a percussion instructor there, or were you doing private lessons outside of the school to bring into the jazz band, or?
I had been in middle school at the magnet school program. In the middle school, my first year was beginning percussion, and Mr. Keels had us go through an entire year of percussion training before we even got to step foot in a room with the concert band.
Oh, right on.
So it was a full school year of rudiments and rebound practice and all the things. And there was never a sports team, so I never got to do the marching band thing.
Right.
So there was never any of that intense training. And I think Mr. Keels knew that, and he knew that would be missing from, everything you need to know. So it was a year long of like learning how to read, learning your rudiments, being a percussionist, not just a drummer.
Right.
So you had to learn how to read notes and all the things. So yeah, that was about it.
I was very similar in a sense. I was the only male that was willing to go over to the xylophone and the bell parts. Because those were typically just girls that played those. They would take piano players and have them play it, right? But for some reason it's probably because I thought the girls were cute.
Well, and you're surrounded by a bunch of girls.
Yeah,
that's pretty.
So the rest of the guys are making fun of me for playing bells, but I'm like, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Guess where I am. But anyhow.
How'd that work out for you, Kevin?
Yeah. Got me in a shitload of trouble throughout my life. So
Nice.
Don't do that anymore.
So by the time I got to high school, I had been taking private lessons from Hines Williams, who was this just amazing jazz cat on the Shreveport scene. air quotes around jazz scene in Shreveport. But really, really great guy. Would sit there and smoke cigarettes your entire lesson and let you think you were doing really great, and then just take all your dreams and crush them. Like that. Like, Well, I see that you thought you were doing well with that particular fill, but that was terrible. Don't ever play that again. But really helpful stuff. And the other thing was that with those things that we would do at lunchtime, it would be like anyone could start a band, and so like it became exciting for me to learn how to play guitar while I was playing drums in the jazz band, because I like, to be honest, I was a snob, like I've already said, like, and I didn't want to play rock drums because I kept getting in rock bands and they would tell me that I was overplaying or whatever, and I was like, well, okay, fine, I don't want to do drums like this. So that's how I actually started playing guitar.
Right.
Was I wanted to learn REM covers and U2 covers and all of those things and like get involved that way. And no one wants to hide behind a drum set their entire life while the singer's getting all the credit.
It's true. And by credit, he means ass. That's really cool, though. So those lunches, it wasn't just like the groups of the school. Like anybody at the school that had a band could basically perform at it.
Totally.
That's
totally.
really cool. I've never heard of that
Wow,
before
yeah.
at a relatively public school. It's a magnet school, but yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, they would set up a stage and there was a PA and whole 9 yards, and we'd play cover songs and everyone would just get down for a whole day. And I wouldn't trade that experience for the world.
No, I could see that being a huge deal for a high school kid.
Certainly.
Even just getting that opportunity of, anyone who's performed on stage knows there's nothing that you can't practice that. Getting to get on stage and just be in front of a crowd.
Totally different. You used to do all that practice in your bedroom or wherever, and you get on stage, you're like...
Even dress rehearsal on a stage, but when all of a sudden there's 100 people standing there going, so what do you got? And you're like, well, apparently no voice currently, but yeah, that's really cool.
And it's another example of a school music program being so important. It's it was huge in my life. Without a doubt, my high school band director is probably one of my biggest mentors. I've said before, Barry Ensman, and I don't know what he did, but he inspired us. I wish I would have loved to have that magic in a bottle that he got us. I mean, he scared the shit out of most of us because he yelled at us when we fuck up, but still, yeah, absolutely. And it's so sad in today's world that those programs are not getting the support. Even my high school is struggling now. Yeah, they're running fundraisers. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Any superintendents listening, everyone that's been on the show so far is high school music was the most important thing. So fuckers, quit giving money to football boosters and start putting money into music programs.
Yeah. I mean, we were, for whatever it was worth, we were winning awards hand over fist at festivals, and I'm not sure how many years it was after I graduated in '92, maybe 2 or 3 years, but they canceled the whole music program, the whole thing.
That's fucked up.
And I remember going back to visit and just being like, are you serious? Like, do you know how good the musicians were that came out of this school? Like, anyway, so it's sad. It's really sad.
That is sad. Yeah, and I just think of like my graduating class. I mean, our first year trumpet player toured with Brian Setzer for 10 years after he graduated. We've got guys that went on to do pretty big things, but like how many of our football players did shit? Not to shit on athletes. There's a lot to be said for it, but I've always thought music programs deserve at least equal footing, an equal, and same like you said, Mike. We won awards. We went to big jazz band festivals. You went to fucking Montreux with your high school
Montreux
jazz
Festival my senior year.
Yeah. So I mean, that's
We got to see Nude Beach right behind us. Oh, we played music.
That's the memory. That's the memory Kevin has from playing.
I remember I remember from one of the other episodes you telling that story and being like, "Man, all I ever did was like skip town and like go get lobster or something."
Right.
Like, anyway.
Yeah, we got to play at the Georgia World Congress Center once. That was as far as we went. We didn't. There were no nude beaches there, in case anybody's wondering. So I think that covers your first gig. But do you remember your first paying gig as a drummer or a guitar player?
I do. One of the bands that came out of those lunches, I'm still friends with this lady today, Shannon Peck. She was Shannon Burton at the time, and we started this band. Let me see if I can remember everyone. James Prather was playing guitar. I was playing drums. Shannon was singing. I think Kellen was also singing. I think I don't remember who was playing bass. It might have been Greg Thomason, but there was a couple of all ages clubs in Shreveport. One was the Courthouse, which was aptly right across the street from the courthouse. And then another one was Outer Limits, and we used to play there like once or twice a week. And ask me how much we made. I couldn't tell you. It was probably like $20 or something like that. But it was a gig. There were people there that paid money to get into the door, and there was an opening band and a middle band and a closing band, and it was that whole town. Like, I have plenty of difficulties recalling my hometown well, but for all of those things, as a musician coming up, that town was really good at fostering a scene.
It sounds like it. Yeah, especially an all ages scene. That's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's the same place where Louisiana Hayride was, and all the great blues guys and all the things like that lived there. It just the whole town just kind of oozes that support for live music. Period.
Right. That's awesome.
So that would be my first paying gig that I can remember.
Nice. Very cool. So, talking about kind of what you're doing now, I mean, you run your studio, you're playing freelance drum work, you're playing guitar. I know you're producing records for people. Is there one that stands out that you kind of credit as your primary focus right now? Are they all kind of pieces of the pie? What do you consider yourself a producer who drums, a drummer who produces? Where do you put yourself in a box, Mike? What do you?
Oh God, yeah, that's. I hate to do that. I don't know. Me, Colin. Like I like to get in a room and make noises.
Totally. Yeah.
And if there's a goal, I started this studio, air quotes around studio.
No, there's no air quotes. It's fucking badass. I recorded vocals for my record on a microphone that Elvis sang into.
Oh, really?
That's a real studio. At that point, there's no air quotes. No, it's there's no need for air quotes there. It's one of the coolest rooms I've ever recorded in.
It's fun. We moved out to Madison, Georgia in 2014. Me and my partner Tammy, and it was a couple of months after we had lived here. I was like, we have a really giant living room, and I bet if we moved all the furniture out of the way, it would probably sound awful, but at least there's room to set up a bunch of stuff. And it actually turns out that it sounds really good.
It does.
So,
and she lets you, so she must be a keeper.
Let's take a moment.
Yeah.
And honor Tammy Hardiman, my wife,
Cheers.
Who is amazing.
Cheers.
And
there have been many a late night that she was cool with us having cables strung everywhere.
And supportive, and yes, all the things. Yeah.
On a side note, any person who is with a musician
is either tolerant or an asshole.
Right. Tangential story. When we first started dating, she said, "I swore to God that I would never date another person who was a musician or that smoked." And I was like, "Well,
good thing is I'm a drummer." Sorry, I had to get one.
The producing thing, I don't know. That's a word that gets thrown around a lot. I understand why you want to call yourself a producer. I'm in a position now at 46 years old where I have this space and I have some things where we can make sounds, and I want to help people make the sounds that they want to make. That's where the Sound House thing came out of. That's where I'm currently working on a record with my buddy Greg out of Nashville. That's that side of things. I've got this space that I can use, and I'm going to use it for everything that it's worth.
Yeah.
So I'm super lucky to be in the situation that I'm in, and I actually need to work harder on that. I need to use it more and make more better content. As far as playing goes, though, Please Please is definitely the focus musically right now. I'm playing guitar in Please Please, which is Dan Dixon's band. He writes these songs that are just, I don't know. They're just, as far as I'm concerned, they're fantastic pop songs that get hidden in all this like dark, interesting musical matter. And I've been doing that for, I don't know, probably 9 years now. So yeah, it's just playing guitar in the band of one of the best guitar players in Atlanta, in my opinion. Like, and he doesn't even play guitar in Please Please anymore. And so it's a real fun challenge, and it's always really interesting to be able to contribute to a group like that.
Right on. So you mentioned Soundhouse, so that's a good segue because that's the next bullet point on my list.
Nice.
Tell. We've talked about Soundhouse on the podcast, but tell people if this is their first episode, give them the elevator pitch of what Soundhouse is and is becoming.
The elevator pitch,
or the long pitch. We've tapes cheap, so we can talk as long as
right.
we want.
Yeah, tapes cheap.
Jam sessions, right? Can't get rid of them. Can't go to them. I don't know.
So let's clarify what today a jam session in Atlanta has become. Okay. It's an open mic with a band you've never played with. That's all these jams are. And all right, soapbox time. I'm so glad you broached that subject, Mike.
Ooh,
so
open that can of worms.
And I know Mike agrees with me on this, so I feel good because he's come out to some that I've hosted and we've sat bitching, smoking in the parking lot, bitching about them.
Uh-huh.
The jams used to be a jam. You go out, if you know the host, you get pulled up. If you're good, you stay for a while. If you're shitty, you play a song and they ask the next guy to come up.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a drummer there all night. You might have a guitar player there all night. It just depends on who shows up. Jams have become, in our age of safe spaces and everyone gets a trophy, you sign up, and no matter your credentials, and not to put down guys that have less experience, but everyone gets 3 songs. It doesn't matter if you don't have 3 songs. It doesn't matter if no one will play with you. The house band will play with you, and you get up and you suck terribly for 3 songs, and there's no incentive to improve. And that's the jam scene in Atlanta these days. And Mike, you go to a lot more of the jazz jams. I'm sure those are a little bit more fulfilling, but maybe not. I mean, you can speak to them.
In Atlanta, they're more interesting. I'm by no means an aficionado on jazz jams in Atlanta, because I've only recently discovered them by taking myself out of my own comfort zone. But I think what you're hitting on is in Atlanta. I don't want to call out a specific scene because it's everywhere, but it's a popularity contest to an extent, and then beyond that, it becomes a chops contest.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm never interested in that.
Yeah.
I'm interested in having a conversation with someone on a stage musically.
Right.
If that's a cover tune, if it's not a cover tune, whatever the bar calls for. I got exhausted with the whole thing. And so I've got this house where I can bring people out and set up and do this thing where there's no audience. You're not trying to impress anyone. And it really is, for me, if I may cheese out a little bit, it is about being able to express yourself however you want to without any pressures. Check your ego at the door.
Right.
Don't bring any cover tunes into my house because I can go anywhere to get that.
We already do that. Right.
Yeah. And let's just make a thing. Let's make a thing. And like, I go back and forth, but like sometimes I want videos of it, and we record every one of them, but I always go back and I listen to those recordings, and it's not like the performances are bad or the recordings are bad, but it was of that moment. And if you weren't there, you're not, it's not like snubbing your nose at people, but it was a moment in time, and it existed there, and everyone grew because of it, which is the most important thing to come out of Soundhouse, I think. And then you move on and you go do the next thing, and you take that vibe with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was my reason for starting Soundhouse. It was, if I'm being 100% honest, no one would hire me to play drums, so that was my reason for starting Soundhouse.
The other one's better. I like it.
But no one knew me, and they were like, yeah, there's some redheaded kid from Madison, Georgia, wherever the hell that is, and he thinks he can play drums. But anyway, like that was why I started Soundhouse, because I was Nate Smith put out that record, Kinfolk. And to hear him talk about it, he invited some folks over to the studio, and they kind of had ideas of what they wanted to do, but not really. And then everyone just jammed it out and then laid it down, and that became the record. And I was like,
awesome.
yes, that's the way to do things, in that sort of genre.
Totally.
Or genre. Genre is a terrible. Well, I said genre because on that episode where you called it out, you called it. You said it always ends up being smooth jazz.
Well, that seems
which
to
I
be
take
where we
issue
land.
with.
Well, okay, all right. let's work it out here.
I'm just kidding.
The ones I have been involved in, maybe I'm lending my Kenny G-ness, but yeah, that's where they seem to land. But it's a lot of fun. It's what you just said about making a record. I wish we could all take a week and do that every day for a week and see what would happen, because it seems like the 2 or 3 that I've been to, by the time it's time to leave, we're just getting our groove. Like we're just getting like creativity is starting to happen. Where everybody's getting comfortable and yeah, I think if we could just take a Sunday to Sunday and do it by like Wednesday or Thursday, some really cool shit would be coming out of it.
Hey, let's make it happen.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
I mean the first one was 2 days long.
Right.
There were people that crashed at my house, overnight, and we cooked food and we made a fire and we opened wine and all the things. But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because people are so, uptight's not the right word, but I'll use it. They're so uptight because of the jam culture. Like you have to get in there and you have your 3 songs and you have to show as much as you can in 3 songs. And that's not built for improvement. It doesn't allow you to express anything original. You know what I mean? I should say it doesn't allow me to express anything original.
Totally. Yeah. Well, it doesn't lend itself to exploring and really seeing where things could go, because it's a lot of the jam sessions and these open mic type things are it's like trying to turn music into a competitive sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And not that rule is laid out that way. There is no hey, there's going to be a winner of the jam tonight. But when you go out and you see, especially if you go out and you're like, oh shit, XYZ is here, I need to play every, Robin Trower lick I know just to show off. And then your whole set is you just, basically shitting all over the band to try to show your awesome chops. And or I know I learned this scale today. Or you get the guy that's like, hey, I learned Steely Dan's best hits, sort of. I'm going to play 3 of those and ruin a 45-minute set for everyone else that had to play with him.
Right.
Like that's, hopefully the person I'm talking about there isn't listening, because that's a very specific reference. But no, that's when you say that, Mike, about it being, we joke about that phrase, like a safe space, but it is a safe space for creativity, because that's really what music is supposed to be. Collaborative. It's not supposed to be competitive.
Exactly.
And so no matter who it is, if they come in with the right headspace, they can bring something unique to that collaboration. And so often with these jams, you don't get that. Every now and then you'll have that magic moment where by that 3rd song you're like, oh, we're really vibing, and it's like, oh, time to get down, because it's the next group's turn, basically. And it there's nothing less creative to me than that, or less fostering of creativity than that.
Yeah. And the art of listening is, I feel missing for the most part at jams
everywhere
as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So many of those, and a lot of times they're not even fun to play at unless it's with buddies that because everybody's just talking over each other. It's everybody just it's the drummer. Usually at most of those, it's the drummer that doesn't know what's happening. The bass player that is a soloist and is just playing lead bass over every song. You get 3 lead guitar players that are all, there's no conversation happening. It's all just, when do I get my 12 bars? Well, I'm going to sit back here and loudly vamp until you give me my 12 bars. That's not a conversation. That's
a whole, they want to stroke their dick in front of everybody.
Basically, yeah. And sometimes you hear really cool shit. It does happen by accident, that you really do get to hear. Some of the best of those jams are when not many people show up. I hate to be that way.
No, but it makes sense.
If it's a decent host band and it's like you and a couple other guys, now we're just hanging out and playing. It's not It's not a dick measuring contest, basically.
Because the pressure's off, because there's not a lot of people there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and that's Soundhouse is perfect because there's no people
pressure
there. There's literally I know we ran camera for a little bit the first time I came, and it was awkward because I think we were all playing to the camera. And as soon as it went off, that was when we got weird and creative and experimented a little bit.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, bringing in the cameras was the worst idea I ever had, because then you have to pay attention to cameras too. And anyway,
it draws your focus for whoever's running the cameras. It draws your focus.
It's unfortunate because maybe if you could stick them somewhere where you just stick them and leave them.
That's the thing. If you could somehow do it Big Brother style, hide cameras.
That'd be cool to see.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me, I was listening to you guys. I've heard you talk about the jams for a while. Is I never did that. I've actually never gone to a jam.
Oh, we'll go to Atlanta, fucker.
Okay, well, I'm totally into it. But it's a different scene here. I know there's one maybe 2 in this town, and
Yeah.
we kind of talked about that one, and we don't need to talk anymore about it. I've already heard about it, so I don't want to piss anybody off, but they're doing their thing. But it just never was very.
They're doing their thing, but it's wrong, Kevin.
I agree. I mean, we might piss some people off, but I'm sorry. It's just
whatever. They're not listening.
Yeah, and it's a common thing, I mean, they've got their little group doing their thing, and I think that's great. But the guys like that are out in the scene and all that, they're not going to this.
Yeah.
For a reason.
It's big in Atlanta. I mean, it's every night of the week. There's something going on.
Yeah, I never really experienced that.
It can be good for networking. Mm-hmm. You can get out and meet guys, but there's always that caveat among pro players of like, this isn't what I always sound like. It's like that's not where you want to go to have to audition for a band.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's a very weird and synthetic feeling experience. It's when we get to Atlanta, we'll get to one because Charlie hosts one every night of the week. So that's his bread and butter. And God bless him for it, because I don't know how the hell he and
the first can I tell a story about Charlie? The first time I ever sat down behind his drum kit at a jam on the snare drum are Charlie's 5 rules of what you can't do as a drummer
on the snare head.
Written in Sharpie, and like all 5 of them. And I was like, I went up to him afterwards and I was like, people do this? And he goes, oh yeah, all the time. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, this jam at Dixie Tavern on a Monday is your time to shine. So you're going to retune someone's entire drum kit before you play Stevie Wonder for the 3rd time tonight.
Yeah, they're playing Superstition again. Better make sure that snare is tuned right.
Anyway, sorry to name names, but
no. What were the 5? Do you remember the things he wrote down?
So it was, It's don't move cymbals. Don't retune drums. You probably I don't remember the others.
Don't hit it, like something about hitting hard.
Yeah, I'm sure it's something clever and funny, but yeah, it's basically
Metallica's drum set.
Basically, yeah, it's basically like don't beat the shit out of my drums.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's anything performance related. It's all just please don't destroy my gear.
But go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say you could sum it all up with like, don't be a dick.
Don't be a dick. Yeah. It's like, I'm sure you've experienced it too. Sharing somebody opens up in front of you and they use your kit or something like that. And you bring the typical brass and snare and pedals or whatever like that, and you turn around and the guy's tuning your fucking drums. I'm like, what are you doing? And then, can I just move this up a little bit? Yeah. Next thing you know, the locks are off and everything. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Right.
You're on stage for a couple minutes or so to do one song, and you're gonna fucking retune my kit.
It's like, man, that's not the problem. The tuning of the drums is not the problem.
See, I was trying to figure out a diplomatic way to say that. The instrument is not not the downfall here.
A hammer is a hammer, asshole. Yeah, the drums definitely suffer the worst at those, but I mean it's hard hosting as a guitarist, especially a working guitarist where you only have 1 or 2 amps. Like, I don't have a throwaway amp that I can take out to host. I bring my fucking twin out. The couple times I hosted with Charlie, it got so bad I pulled 2 of my power tubes so that even if they cranked it to 10, it was only putting out 40 watts. I pulled all of the knobs off and put duct tape over the pegs because there's a couple guys and people around Atlanta know them. They come out, and I had one guy. It's a fucking twin reverb. It's a loud amp.
Yeah.
Like, and we're playing a room the size of this table. And guys would come and just dime every knob, and I'd be like, "Man, this amp's noisy as hell." I'm like, well, yeah, man, because we're not playing fucking Shea Stadium. Like. And I mean, I saw Barry Richmond unplug a guy from his amp for doing that shit. Like, and he doesn't give a fuck. He literally walked up while the guy was playing and pulled his guitar cord out of the amp. It was like, nope, you're done. And I don't want to get punched in the face, so I haven't done that. I'm a lot more passive aggressive about it. I'll just leave snarky shit written on the duct tape over my amp.
So do you have is this a thing you just do on your own? Do you have a website that you promoted at all? Any sort things? What do you do with the music?
You mean the Soundhouse thing?
Yeah, the Soundhouse thing.
It's thus far it's been, I don't know, random posts on social media and hitting up the people that I know would probably be interested. I should probably formalize it more, but part of me is like, if I formalize it more, then it becomes a thing. Yeah, and see, I don't want to use words like underground. It's just like folks coming to my house to have a good time. You know what I mean? I know the people that I can call and I can kind of vibe off of people off of Instagram. Shout out to Alex Hassel, who's a guitar player in Atlanta, who I just saw practicing a Brian Blade Fellowship song on his Instagram story, and I hit him up and I was like, "Yo, you should come out to the house and jam," and he did, and it was amazing. And that was it. That's kind of like, because that way I can control like there's no jam culture at my house.
No,
you know what I mean?
up.
And I don't
Right.
I don't have to tell anyone to like knock it off. You know, like I can do the thing. So yeah, like I don't know. Like I go back and forth a lot with this. Like, should there be video? Should it be recorded? Should I put it on Bandcamp? Like the last time Colin was there, we talked about like putting everything up on Bandcamp and donating money to a cause, you know, and all the things. But then it becomes this project that has a goal other than just making music. And at 46, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of okay to just make music on a Sunday in my house, you know,
right
like
on.
See what happens. So
it is pretty much just for fun. You don't really sell the song later, or just give it to whoever was there, basically, or
he doesn't even always give it to everybody that was there.
just for the fun. Hey, if it works and it's making you and everybody happy, you know, that's all that matters.
Man,
to walk away with a good vibe, I think is probably the best gift you can have.
That last one was very fulfilling. It was a lot of fun. It was. I wish it had been longer than one day, because it was me, Mike, Joel. I'm not even gonna say his last name because we said we wouldn't talk about him.
Is he the guy that was yelling at him?
Yeah,
the drummer?
Yeah.
Joel always yells at me.
Yeah, he does. He's very mean.
He's not mean.
All right, that's all we're gonna talk about, Joel. And then Anthony Mancini, who is just fucking ridiculous guitar player. I mean, and you wouldn't know it. And we talked about he hangs out with a gang of murderers, so he's very low key with not actual murderers, really good musicians. Sorry, and he's real low key. You'd never know it, but he starts his jazz chops are just ridiculous. Like his chord melody stuff. I mean, and he's just got an ear and he listens and all that cool shit that we all wish we did, you know, and. The stuff that he brought in that Sunday we were there, it was just like, man, I'm just gonna hang back here. Like, I just want to listen to him play guitar. Like, this is real. Right. We should write vocals so I can just sing and I won't play guitar at all. Like, and that's
and he's humble as shit too.
God.
Like on top of it, like he's not a jerk at all.
The dude
like,
is
there's nothing
Teflon
wrong with him.
to compliments. Like. Like it's just you can throw him at him. He's just like Matrix whiz banging him out of the way. Like you'd never know until he starts playing. You're like, oh fuck, all right, cool. Like,
right.
And that's what that's about. Like what Mike's talking about. And Anthony's come out to like my shows and sat in with the band, but getting to sit there that day without worrying about entertaining a crowd, without worrying about levels on stage, and we all have cans on, so we're in each other's ears, and hear what's going on. It was just cool shit happens. Like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And the environment's nice too. I mean, that beautiful house and the sound good, and Mike's playing drums, which that's always fun.
Hey, maybe we can do an Allman Brothers thing one time.
There you go. Let's do it. I'm in.
There's definitely room for 2 drum kits.
I got congas and cajones.
I don't know if Mike has enough microphones though. He might have to buy more.
I do.
Ooh, that means you got to buy more gear.
Yeah. So with the studio, are you formally operating as a studio yet? I know you're doing the thing for your buddy in Nashville. You dubbed my vocals for me on my record. Is there a plan with that? Are you trying to more formalize that? Is it more just keeping a place to make sounds? Where do you see that headed?
I would like to formalize it. I want to finish this record with my buddy Greg, to sort of have this thing I can point to, and say like, here's this record that, I produced as well as recorded, and calling in a bunch of great players to play on this record and make a thing before I really start to say, well, I have a studio, and everyone's like, yeah, so does everyone else.
Right.
I really want to focus on this, and this project has been drug out a little bit and will continue to be because he's in Nashville and I'm here, and it's hard to make a record long distance. But yeah, I want to finish that project, and I want to be able to be really proud of that project, and then be like, here's what I can do at the studio, because we've just finished demoing a set of songs And we've decided like these songs need to be cut live with everybody in the room, and these are the songs that we can cut, a track at a time and just do overdubs and all the things. Writing horn arrangements and string arrangements and all the things. Like, it's a huge undertaking, but we're not beholden to any sort of timeline, so we're going to do it right.
Yeah.
And once I get done with that, like, then I'll be like, okay, here's what I made here, and if you're interested in doing, if you can vibe off of this, like, let's do a thing.
Yeah, totally.
So,
and what you're saying there, I mean, you just described you are a producer. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're a producer. Really is like the sixth man, I guess. You could say that it's.
You hear things differently.
Yeah. You bring in a different ear, and you're lending your creativity to the music. That's. I mean, the stuff that you played me, the stuff that you guys demoed, like, it has a sound. Just
right.
in what you've done, and like the Soundhouse stuff that we've done has a sound. The when I did my vocals there, they have a sound, like it's and that's cool. Those guys you're talking about where everybody has a studio don't have that. Like, that's, I think, the thing that marks it to where you're a producer, with a real studio, a space to create music in. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well,
go
ahead.
Sorry, Kevin, go ahead. No, go
ahead. I've only had a couple experiences actually doing recording. I haven't done a lot of recording, but I did get to co-produce an album several years ago, and it was a very different experience. I mean, it was like I think we were talking to John Blackman a little bit about it too. It's like, as a drummer, you can hear if there's like one 30-second note off and everything, compared to everybody else is going, no, it's on. No, let's move it a little bit. Yep, that's right. That type of thing.
Right,
but in reference to that, I mean, I noticed, like, I played the drum parts and then I came in and listened to it. It's like I didn't actually play them. It was a different thing. It was like somebody else was doing it. You really kind of split your brain in a sense, I guess, when you do that. Now, just comment, if you could comment a little bit how you approach that type of stuff with producing or in playing it and stuff.
So I can talk about the project that I'm working on, and I feel okay with that. Like, Greg sent me these demos 2 years ago. The lyrics were amazing, right? He just wrote these amazing lyrics, and he's a bass player, and he wrote these songs on guitar and or piano. So he was limited by his knowledge of, like, what he knew how to play on those instruments. And I said, I want to take these songs and I want to expound upon them in ways that maybe you can't, in ways that maybe you're not able to do.
Right.
So that was very much like not drummer side of the brain. That was, writing crappy emo songs for 20 years side of the brain, making it happen. And he actually, he sat down this last session that we had, and I'm not going to get the quote exactly right, but he said something to the effect of, I am overwhelmed by how many directions we can possibly take this song. And I was like, yeah, isn't that great? And he was like, and he was
that's
like,
the best
no,
thing about the studio.
This is not great. Yeah, right. But like, I like to dig into meaning. Like, this is going back to the jam thing, but like, intention is super important to me. Like, when you're writing a song, when you're arranging a song, when you're writing a part, when you're playing a drum fill, your intention about how it serves the song is super important to me. So Greg is writing these super heady lyrics that are really gritty and really personal and really, really fucking good. And we have been diving real deep into these lyrics and trying to extract what that means in song form about these things. And like I said, we were like, okay, we need horns and a gospel choir. And like, holy crap, I hope we can get a gospel choir, to make all this happen. And we've done some demo sessions like with some musicians, and it's been super challenging to be like, okay, I'm the engineer now. Okay, I'm the drummer now. Okay, I'm the producer now. That is so hard, and I know why it doesn't happen that way. But I'm not sitting on millions of dollars worth of cash to make this happen. So I try to focus on the task at hand, and like you were saying, you come back and you listen, and it's like you're listening to someone else playing it because you're in a totally different headspace. Because I can't listen to be like, oh well, the snare drum is nailing the 2 and 4. I have to listen to the whole the song as a whole, and is it is the being that pocket between the 2 and the 4, is that serving the song, and does that line up with what Dave's doing on bass and all the things? It's difficult. I love it, but holy shit, it's a lot of work.
Absolutely.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's so cool, and I hope to work with you sometime. Especially saying about the meaning of it, because I think so many people miss that. You take the lyrics, and is the music supporting the lyrics? If it's a deep, spiritual, emotional feeling, what have you, whatever, they should talk to each other. And so many times people write songs and they don't.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why it doesn't do anything. It's like, well, that's one of the reasons.
It doesn't connect.
Yeah.
That was, I wish Mike and I had met a few years earlier, because I'm happy with my current record that I'm working on, but it would have been very different, I think, because it's Mike. We fuck with each other a lot when we gig because it's fun, but like I have so much respect for what he just said. Like everything that he just went through was, that's so right. Like self-producing this record that I'm hopefully putting out some fucking time. It's hard for me to change those hats. Like I have nothing but respect for the guys that can do that. Because I'd play a guitar solo and be like, yeah, whatever, I want to work on mixing the snare drum, or whatever. It was hard for me to finally get the guitar tracks to where I was happy with them. I had to have somebody else sitting in the chair. Like I couldn't be sitting in the chair and tracking it, because while I'm playing guitar, I'm listening to like, oh shit, I need to go back and we need to punch bass there or whatever, and I'd have to go sit in another room where I can't see the stems on the screen, and do all that.
You got to be in guitar player mode, not engineer mode.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like you said, Mike, I wish I had millions of dollars that I could just pay. We could go to Blackbird Studios, or wherever, and just say, hey, you handle the technical side. We're going to sit in this room for a week with candles and weed and pizza, and create this music. You just please capture it well.
Right. Please do your job.
Yeah, basically.
Paying you millions of dollars for.
Right. Yeah. Here are your millions and millions of dollars.
But at the same time, about the millions of dollar comment, I mean, I've invested a little bit of money in this, and it's because I've been to studios. Yep. I haven't been to many amazing studios. I mean, I've never been to Electric Lady, but I've been to studios, and they're good, they're fine, but like I don't need to go there to get the vibe,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. God, this is a deep rabbit hole. I'm not sure we have enough time on this episode to go down it. But like, when you start talking about home studio versus a professional studio and what the difference is, and why does it matter? I think there's a lot of interesting conversations to be had about where you want to put your focus.
Agreed. Yeah.
Well, there's a barrier of entry to where to get a professional sound, you do have to have a certain level of gear. But I think once you get that, vibe is way more important.
Yeah.
I've spent most of my 20s doing session work, and I did everything from the like dorm room studio, or the rehearsal space at Vision in Atlanta. That was kind of set up as a studio, up to, I got to record at Southern Tracks. I got to record at Tree Sound before they closed, which are, Black Crowes, Leonard Skinner, and those big rooms, the gear was pretty similar. But the vibe, when you walk into that room and you're just like, oh, fuck me. Like, it's
all about vibe.
Part of it's intimidating. So, you got to step your shit up. But part of it's also just you feel that the vibe. Like, I don't know of another word to use for that.
No, that's the word, man. That's one of my favorite words.
Yeah, and that's, do you have a name for the studio, Mike, or is it still just your house? Is this going to be the
I don't have a name. It's Tammy's house.
Tammy's house. Good answer.
Sound House is a great name. If I'm going to throw that out there for. But anyway, there's a vibe. When you sit in that room, there's a vibe. Mm-hmm. Like it's the age of the house. It's the whatever it is, 15, 16-foot ceilings, or the gear that you have. When you told me. You could have lied to me, but when you told me that microphone Elvis sang through, I was like, "Oh shit!" Like it just got real. Like I should have worn better shoes. Like this is. But no, that's.
But what's fun about the gear like that, and talking about gear, we didn't use that microphone on every vocal take that we cut, right? Because it wasn't the right tool for the job.
Yep.
And to brag on Dan Dixon from Please Please, I'm gonna screw up the name. Who's the guy who owns Southern Ground in Nashville?
I don't know.
The guy from Atlanta.
Oh, Zach Brown.
Zach Brown,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Dan was one of the engineers at Zach Brown's home studio, wherever he lived outside of Atlanta.
Right.
And we recorded some of the tracks at that place for the latest record. And they sounded great, but they didn't sound any better than the stuff that Dan was doing in his own studio.
Right.
Which was, you know, a rented garage at the time.
Right.
And like it's about the know-how of the cats in the room and getting what they need out of the song. You know
totally.
what I mean? It doesn't matter like how many compressors you have or how many microphones you can put on the drums. Like, get what you need to do the job and then move on. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
As long as there's 16 mics on the drums.
16?
13. 13.
Well, yeah, no, that's totally true. One of my favorite stories is Tom Schultz from Boston. You know, whether you like Boston or not, their big record, I think it was just self-titled, in a fucking garage on a 4-track.
Right.
Like, he put packing quilts up. He went and rented a 4-track. The dude had know-how. He's a fucking genius, obviously. But you listen to those records, they're some of the most lush recordings. You listen to that shit, and there's just the vocals. I mean, it sounds like there's 15 vocal tracks on there.
That's before all the toys and bells and whistles that we have
shit
now.
wasn't on Pro Tools, kids. Like, that was on 2-inch tape. Like,
Right.
But yeah, that's totally true, and that's Kevin and I were talking before we called about Billie Eilish and all the big stir that her and her brother are making in the music industry, and whether you like her music or not, it's not really my taste. But I was saying to Kevin, like, I don't necessarily love the music, but I love what they're doing. You know, because they
100%.
Yeah, they won like 7 or 8 Grammys, you know, and I mean, this album has gone quadruple platinum, you know, whatever it is, literally recorded sitting on his bed, you know, and that's that democratization of music that's so fucking cool. But that's a vibe. When you listen to that record, when I found that, I'm like, yeah, that totally makes sense. Like, it sounds close and it matches the songs. You know, going back to what you said, Mike, all those songs are real personal, you know, real tight, and it sounds like that. Like, it sounds like you're in her head while she's singing. Like, you know, that kind of it's vibe. It's all just vibe. That's
it's about.
But so that said, we want to come down and make a record at your studio, Mike.
Let's do it. I was going to say about Billie Eilish, though, I don't know if you caught the Oscars last night, but she sang "Yesterday."
Oh, really?
The Beatles.
No, I didn't see
during the "These are the people that are no longer with us" montage.
Right.
She's got something special. Like,
that's what I've heard.
She kind of killed it. It was just her and a piano, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
She's killing this.
Well,
it takes a lot of.
That's a
whatever
lot of balls.
to get up on stage and sing a Beatles song
at the Oscars.
How about it?
Yeah.
And what is she, 16, 17?
She's young. I mean, she's real young.
Yeah.
And
shows you, I don't know.
Well, the stuff I've heard her do, like even covers and stuff, she's real unique, which is really cool. She has a voice. Like, and that's watching that there's like a YouTube documentary of her brother Phineas, like their studio tour, which is literally him like in his bedroom, but talking about their parents are hippies, you know, so they were homeschooled. You know, he was one of the things that stuck out in that video was anytime they had an idea that they thought was important enough, they took a marker and wrote it on their wall. Like so all through the house, there's all these cool, but that fosters
that fosters creativity and everything. Yeah.
So he thinks outside the box. You know, he's talking about finding a squeak in a chair that he sampled and using that as like the high in a drum beat. You know, shit like that. You know, I mean, Dr. Dre's cool, but like that's where music should be going. I think it's awesome. I think everyone should make music. You know, it shouldn't be I don't have enough money to do this. You know, that's
do
really
it on
cool.
your phone nowadays.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all you need.
What was that? Yeah, Mike sent us you sent me that video.
Isn't that a Boston song?
Yeah, wasn't it? It was Long Time, wasn't it? Or one of those.
Yeah. Or was it More Than a Feeling?
More Than a Feeling. That was it. Did it on the GarageBand on his phone, looped, and like filmed a real-time video of him doing each of the parts, and he gets done. You're like, holy shit! Like that's so fucking cool. Like,
crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So since we are Tales from the Gig, we've been getting off on tangents, but there's so much fun shit to talk about.
Yeah.
There is.
I have to ask you 2 gig-related questions so that we can live up to our name. Do you have a favorite gig you've ever played?
I knew you were going to ask these questions, so I compiled a list.
Oh, shit.
I even reached out to old bandmates, and I was like, do we have any stories I'm not remembering?
Mike's doing sub-interviews.
You can tell he's a drummer.
Well, I'm trying not to look like a dipshit on your podcast.
He's a drummer. He's organized.
Yep, he charted the podcast.
I'm also a big podcast fan, so, you know.
We may have just found ourselves a third host.
The first one is with the Please Please show, and I want to say that it was my second or third show with Please Please. It was outdoors at Atlantic Station in Atlanta. Colin, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
and so you know
huge.
the square courtyard in the middle?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So we were playing there, and we were opening for AWOL Nation. So there was
Oh shit.
about 1,000 people there.
Yeah.
I had a good case of the nerves. I hadn't played a show quite that large, probably ever, and it was up there, and just get through it. Practices were paying off. Was doing well, and there was a guy in the front row in the most gloriously bedazzled denim jacket, and he had like a mohawk sort of swirly haircut, and he was just into it. And every time I started to feel like a little lack of energy, I would just lock eyes with him because he knew the words to all of our songs.
No shit. You don't
and
know.
It was the most unnerving thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Did anybody in the band?
Why do you know all these words?
Nobody knew him?
Nobody knew him.
Whoa.
Because I brought it up. I was like, who is the guy in front? And Dan was like, I saw him. How does he know all the words to our songs?
That's pretty crazy.
That's cool.
The only other one I got was back in the Shreveport days. I was in a band called. No, it wasn't Iris. Oh, what was that band called?
I
can't remember what we were called.
Yeah.
But we opened for the Toadies. Dating myself, but we opened for the Toadies, and it was an okay club. It was a huge crowd, and everyone had a great night. But at the end of the night, the club stiffed the Toadies on their guarantee.
Oh shit.
So Lisa, the bass player, went and stole all of the cue balls out of all the pool tables at the club and sold them with autographs on them to make up for their
Brilliant
money. That was good. Yeah, she was a lot of fun to hang with. Like she was like, "Fuck this! I'm stealing these cue balls and I'm gonna make some money." Like
That's
it was really good.
fantastic.
Yeah, it was really good.
Nice. Well, that's awesome, man. What does the future hold for Mike Boutte? What are your plans?
Oh God, I want to make more music. Dave Chase and I have got a little project, a little project we're working on.
Got a little thing, a little something happening.
Dave and I are going to explore the realms of instrumental music in the fusion world. We've got good old Anthony Mancini helping us out with some guitar, so we're writing some instrumental things.
Nice.
Just because I want to play drums more.
Yeah.
Please is doing great. We're playing South by Southwest, a couple of shows at South by Southwest in a couple of weeks, and
Sweet.
that's fantastic. But I need to play some funk drums. So
Totally.
we're gonna go down that path. Probably make a record in my studio with that.
Nice.
And we'll see what else. Gonna keep playing with Please Please and doing the thing and keep putting my name out there. Maybe someone will hire me to play drums.
Right on. Got any wild, crazy stories? I'm sure we haven't had anybody match up to Max's story yet.
Good God.
It's going to come out.
By the time this airs, that episode will be out.
Let's still have to
let's
confirm
talk
that.
about the blowjob.
Okay. I do not. I can't.
You can't
go no
mention
farther.
Yeah, no one
Can't,
can. I mean, we're pretty much we peaked at episode 5?
Yeah.
So
We were like, oh fuck, he's really going to go.
yeah,
there.
he's going for. You'll see when the episode comes, or since this is future us talking. When you first saw this episode, Mike, since you are a devoted follower, we asked Max Levitan of the Night Howlers his craziest gig story. Now, mind you, he's not even 30, so we figured it would be like a high school party or something like that. No, it was not that. Evidently, there are some fallacious women hanging out at the cigar bar when I am not there. And,
At Maxwell's?
At Maxwell's, yeah. And he has told us a graphic story about one such encounter, which is not the experience I have at Max. You've played Maxwell's with me. I don't think that's the experience
Maxwell's
you had either.
I would not describe any there. That's a lovely, lovely music loving crowd, but that is not the adjective I would use to describe anyone there.
Yeah, they're I mean, like I said, it's mostly old drunk dudes coming up like, man, love your fucking guitar, man. But yeah, that's never been a hey, you want a Hummer in the alley.
Oh.
So
I mean, I hope his best gig story gets better.
Yeah, I hope he didn't peak early. That's because if he thinks that's how gigging life is going to be for him in the future, he's going to be incredibly disappointed.
Incredibly.
I'm hoping we can follow up with him a year down and be like, where'd all the blowjobs go,
Unless
man?
you're Poison or Def Leppard or somebody.
Yeah. But well, yeah. So that is not the bellwether.
Yeah.
That's not our. We're counting him as an outlier. He's not in the bell curve. But I mean, other than Denim Jacket Guy, that's pretty solid. Do you have any crazy shit that's happened at or after or before shows?
I mean, I have an embarrassing one about myself where there was a set in Nashville where we played the first set, and then my girlfriend at the time broke up with me, and then we played the second set,
shit.
and I smashed my Chet Atkins SST in the middle of the 2nd Avenue.
Oh, Jesus.
How's that?
That's pretty solid. Nice. Bitch. Oh, did she like buy you the guitar, or was it
No, I was just mad.
just mad? All right. Yeah, that's
I
pretty
mean,
solid.
No one really needs a Chet Atkins SST anyway.
Yeah,
So,
no, that's
I
a
mean, except
throwaway.
Dave Matthews. He does what he's going to do.
Little
with it,
baby. Yeah, that's pretty solid. That's good. Do you remember? Did you yell anything when you smashed the guitar? Was it cathartic for you? Or
Who knows?
yeah.
The band didn't break up that day, so that was good.
Well, that's good. Well, at least you waited till
That's all
after
I
the
got.
show to smash the guitar.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That's all I got. I've played some good shows. I've played some terrible shows.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's about right.
Haven't we all?
That for some reason reminded me of one that I haven't told yet. If you don't mind me telling a tale from the gig.
Please.
But my senior year of high school, we were playing our Battle of the Bands, and my drummer Ted, who I'm pretty sure will be listening to this, was leaving within a few weeks to go on his mission for his church because he's Mormon. And this was like our last hurrah, we're getting the band back together, and we played this show, and in our teenage stupidity, instead of doing like a Kink song or something, because we did not have chops, we're fucking 17, we decided to try to do Rugged Road by Robin Ford.
Oh, what?
Yeah. So
Wow.
now, yeah. So not only a Robin Ford tune, but a pretty like complicated, like intense Robin Ford tune. Never mind the guitar playing. Like there was no singing that song at 17, but I don't know what the fuck we were thinking. So we of course didn't even start learning the song till day of, because Battle of the Bands was at like 7, so it's like shit. We got like 3 hours after school. We'll be fine.
Totally nailed it.
Yeah, we're fucking 2 run throughs and we're good. So we sit down. Ted had never even heard the song. The rest of us had, I was a Robin Ford fan, so guys that would ride in my car would have to listen to that record. So Ted charts it out real quick, and gets him at least a lead sheet for himself. And we got through the changes, ran it 2 or 3 times. It was passable for our standards. We're like, man, we've got like 2 hours left. Should we just keep shedding the song and get it better? Well, no, we went to Party City and bought crazy hats because we thought that was probably the right move. So we did that. It was not the right move, Mike, in case you're wondering. So
I was curious.
we get back to the school and set up, and Ted had written his notes in red Sharpie. So they immediately put a red spotlight on his drums, and his notes fucking disappear.
Yep.
Like, they're just gone. And we, of course, can't hear them because we're on a stage. There's no, it's a high school crowd. It's loud. And he's like, guys, I can't see my notes. We got to do a song we know. And we're like, come on, man. So I just count the fucking song off. And it did not go well because he had no muscle memory of the song. It's the only time in my career, if we can call it that I was canceled. We got like a minute and a half into the song and they cut power.
Nice.
And the Gong Show.
Yeah, we got hooked. We got
hook.
yeah. It was
man.
that's my most embarrassing that I've had happen. Thankfully it was pretty early on, so we were able to brush it off pretty easily, but I didn't smash a guitar after that though.
Well, I was about to thank you for softening my story, but then you came back around to making it worse. The stupid shit emo kids do.
Oh my god. Yeah, Chelsea affectionately calls that era of my life SEMO. That was so one to our wives. Well, Mike, where or Kevin, what you got?
Gear wise.
Oh yeah, you got drummers. Talk
Drummers.
gear. Mike's got
what do you
some
want to
cool-
know?
Drum wise,
Mike's got some
you
cool
probably got a multitude of things, but what do you primarily run with in your working kits?
I have a set of Ludwig Keystones from between 67 and 69. Lucked out and found, so I got 12, 13, 14, 16, and then 20 and a 22 that was pieced together over time. I didn't buy it all at once. The white shells on the interior. One of the drummers from Please Please, Derek Murphy, was like, because I didn't have a drum set for a while, and he was like, you just got to get one of those 60s Ludwigs with the white interiors. And so I started buying those, and they're so versatile, actually. Like I can do like the jazz fusion thing, or I can play a rock gig or whatever, like and I've got all the sizes that I would ever need. I'm not dedicated to anyone as far as cymbals go. Zildjian mostly, got a couple of Istanbul things, and just got my new 24-inch ride.
I was going to ask what that
big
monster
old
was
guy.
over your shoulder.
I found this cat in Australia, Craig Lawrenson, who makes custom cymbals, and got on his waiting list, and he posts YouTube videos of stuff that he's working on, and he posted this thing, and I had never heard a cymbal like it, and he was like, it's yours if you want it, like you're up next on the list. So pulled the trigger, and I still never heard a cymbal like it, and I'm still learning how to play it. It's one of the best instruments I've ever bought, and it's weird to talk about a ride cymbal that way maybe, but like it's just so good. Like you can hit it in so many different ways and get so many different sounds out of it. So I love that.
And that 24 is different. I mean, I have the Peisty 20, the big 24-inch that Bonham used, the giant pack. Excuse me. And it just felt different playing than any other 20 or 22. I typically use a 20, but that 24 just where you place the stick, it just had a totally different feel of it. So it sounds like what you're describing as well.
Yeah. I remember reading an article with Tyson Shorey, is that right? Great jazz drummer, and he was talking about how he would spend an entire week with just a cymbal. And I was like, what a great idea. Like, how come I'd never thought to do that before? And you just spend all this time with it, just hitting it in every possible way you can think of. And like just the sounds you can get out of one piece of gear. It's just kind of amazing. And the 24 is like, you got to know, you got to understand how to play those things, or they'll get away from you quick.
Ooh, yeah.
And so it's a lot of fun.
Well, that's what I played a lot of gigs where it's just kick, snare, hat, or maybe just one little small cymbal or something like that. And now I'm using a cajon for that. And you get more creative because you got less stuff. All of a sudden you realize, wow, there's that sound there, all these other things, and this brush and then that type of brush, and hands, rims, whatever, and all. But it makes you experiment more.
It makes you look for those extra sounds that you're relying on other things to do for you.
Yeah. And I think that you may not use them all the time, but that one time is like, make that little different sound, and it can be that special little place between 2 and 4 or something, that really
for
has
sure.
a nice sound.
Nice.
For sure.
Well, you're a guitar player too. Tell us about your guitar rig with Please Please.
I use pedals because I don't know how to play guitar.
I was just about to bring up your monster pedal board.
No, I've made fun of myself in my head before doing this because you had Barry Richmond on this freaking podcast. Like I'm not a Barry. I would never ever sit in with guitar on any jam anywhere ever. But I'm a big Johnny Greenwood fan, so I've got all the pedals and all the MIDI control things, and texture and noise and melody is my goal. Simplistic. I don't solo on drums either. I'm
like that
more
too.
of a
Yeah.
I mean, I've got all the pedals. I can make all the sounds. I can do all the things. It's about what you can do with it, and definitely adding to the song. Like I never sat down and learned guitar solos, and it's probably a bad thing, but here I am.
Not.
So, I've got this big MIDI rig that you referred to, Colin, where it's like my pedals are all behind me through a switcher, so I can turn them on and off. And the best way, the best way to put it is that Anthony Mancini came to see a Please Please show once, and after the show, he goes, yeah, man, that was great. My wife would love you guys. And I was like,
Oh.
I was like, yeah, she would.
Yep,
She would
yep,
dance
she
her
sure
ass
would.
off. Yep.
Right on.
That's
So-
all. Well, man, they're the ones that buy records, so that's not a bad
That's-
thing.
You know, Dan started the band because he said he was tired of like dudes asking him how to play guitar solos and wanted to see more ladies like getting
that
down
the
and having a
trick?
good time.
God damn
That's
it! I've been
it,
doing it
man.
wrong because that's enough. That's all
Yeah.
I get.
Man, was that sounded more like the Tin Pan Alley '87 than the '84 that you were doing there. Was that really where you?
Yeah, but no alley head. That's
Guitar players in the crowd. I love them.
yes, indeed. What from the studio standpoint? I mean, I know your gear is extensive. What's your main? What's your setup? If people are curious for the studio, your go-to shit. I know because you got a whole room full of shit.
I use a lot of Mojave microphones. They sound really good and they're cheap. Got this. I mean, I have all the usual stuff. I've got a couple of 1176 copies. I've got some 1073 copies. All the things to make the things sound good.
Yep.
What a weird question. I don't know. I could read you the list, but no one gives a shit how many SM57s I have.
Are you a Final Cut person, or are you a Logic, or what do you?
I'm a Logic person.
Cool.
I'm a Logic person. I had Final Cut for a little while, and
Where am I seeing Final Cut?
I started using
Pro Tools.
Logic.
Pro
and I was
Tools.
like,
That's
yeah,
it.
Pro Tools is
Sorry
what you
about
meant.
that.
sorry.
No,
Final
that's
Cut.
my video brain. That's
Yeah,
what I've
right.
been doing
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much
yeah.
editing. Sorry about that.
I'll start over. I used Pro Tools for a little bit, and then I started using Logic, and I was like, why does anyone use Pro Tools? It's almost like Pro Tools is hard on purpose just to keep you from using it.
I agree.
So
Yes.
I get the cats that have been using Pro
Yeah.
Tools for
Yeah.
however many years or
Yep.
whatever, but like Logic made sense to me, and that's the one I can work the quickest with. So that's what I went with.
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been on that balance. I've been using Reaper just because it's free and it's pretty powerful. But I use Logic for a long time, and I'm as we're getting our stuff going, it's like I think I'm just gonna bite the bullet and go back to Logic. it's so
it
quick.
just works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just works. It's so easy to dump audio files into and
Yeah.
dump loops into, and it's just it's and being that we're all at the Steve Jobs teat.
Yeah.
It's just solid. Yeah.
Well, and I find sometimes that
Right.
GarageBand is just fun to easy if you got some little idea, like
Man,
you capture it
I
so
fucking
fast,
love GarageBand.
and then you can
That's-
take it from GarageBand.
And that's
into
the thing. The thing that's so
into
great
Logic.
with Logic, yeah, is
Yeah.
I think you can just open a GarageBand project now, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
every song I have written in the last 8 years was fully demoed in GarageBand.
Yeah.
And that's for better or worse. I don't know if the guys like it or not because I bring them finished songs.
Mhm.
They're finger drums. Of course, they're sometimes me playing bass, sometimes keyboard bass, but like they're arranged. We'll deviate some. I know Joel hated it. Not to keep bringing Joel up, but he did not like me bringing him completed songs.
I feel bad. We've only talked about things that Joel hates.
Well, let's talk about things he loves. He loves weed.
He loves me.
He loves Mike. He loves Waffle House. I think that pretty much covers it.
Good job.
Yeah. See?
I mean, to get back to the DAW thing though, like I think like, and I'm not giving away any secrets. Like, use the tool that gets the job done the quickest.
Yep.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I remember cats like telling me like, well, how are you going to interface with Real Studios if you're not using Pro Tools? And I was like, no Real Studios want to interface with me anyway. I'm just trying to write a damn song.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like the SM57 is set up, the guitar is out of tune, and Logic is in front of me. I'm going
Yep.
to record this and we're going to get it done.
And
you know?
if
So,
a studio that big doesn't have a copy of Logic to take your project and import it into Pro Tools, they're not that big of a studio.
it's all WAV files
Exactly.
anyway. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't
That's
matter.
what I
Right.
said too. It's all WAV files.
Yep. No, have you either of you guys ever seen Graham, the Recording Revolution guy on YouTube?
No.
Yeah.
Really cool, like mixing tricks and stuff like that. He's a
Yeah.
Christian producer and artist, but their fidelity's really high. So like the stuff he does is really cool. But that's his big thing. He's like, it's all audio. Like people say one DAW sounds better than the other. That's just not true.
No.
They sample if
interface,
it's the same
use it.
sample
Yeah.
rate and the same all that. Use whatever works. And his big thing is use whatever you have.
Yes.
You know, if you have GarageBand, fucking record in GarageBand. Don't go spend money if you don't need to. Get better at what you're doing, not buying more tools.
Which is what we've been doing here.
Right, yeah, no shit.
We're just using what we
That's
have.
the
That's
definition of this podcast.
Well, no, like I mean, my main songwriting tool is voice memos on my phone.
Me
you know,
too.
it's
Yep.
usually a glass of bourbon, a cigarette, my front porch, and my iPhone.
Same.
You know?
Yep.
I don't remember who said it, but like whoever designed the compressor inside the iPhone did a great job.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because it sounds really good.
It's really pretty
yeah.
solid, man. Yeah, sitting with
Yeah.
an acoustic guitar and singing into the microphone.
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely.
Yeah, just use the shit that's in front of you and make more art and stop worrying about gear. Like
Totally.
that's my thing. Said the guy who loves to collect microphones.
I was going to say the guy with a microphone vault of like 400 microphones. But I mean, you know how to use them right. I mean, that was the me doing the vocals for my record was the first chance I got to work with you as a producer, and you were like, no man, you know, this vocal has this characteristic to it, let's try this mic, and you brought it out. I was like, oh shit, yeah, fuck yeah, dude. Like that was, you know, I think I did some of the vocals on the mic you're talking through right now, that SM7. So
Right.
yeah, that's
Right.
because it called for it, and that was that takes an ear, you know, that absolutely.
Well, that goes back to, and I think, thank you for the compliment. Like that goes back to what we were talking to much earlier. Like you have to put your head in certain modes, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm in songwriting mode, so just care about the fucking song. And now I'm in recording mode, and so you know, get the parts right. And now I'm in producer mode, so like pay, you know, make sure everything sounds the way that it needs to, and pay tribute to what you're trying to accomplish. Like
Right.
it's like if someone had, I often think about this, and maybe it's just old man bullshit, but like if someone had told me when I
There's a
was in
band
my
name.
early 20s, like stop worrying about X, Y, and Z and worry about
Yes.
X when it's time to worry about X, and worry about Y when it's time to worry about Y. You know, no one teaches you the stuff that you learn on your own, where you're like, oh, if I just focus on writing a really good song instead of writing a really good song with a really good mic and a really good reverb and all the things, like the song will be great.
The song,
Yeah.
right.
Shit, what it sounds like.
Yep.
You know, like I don't know.
That's
No,
cool, yeah.
totally. That brings me to another question. I was going to wrap up, but we're just going to keep talking to you.
Love it.
With as you're getting the studio more established and see yourself bringing in maybe artists that you don't necessarily personally know, do you think you'll offer your services as a drummer, or do you think you're going to stick to wearing just that producer engineer hat? How hard is that, I guess, for you to separate out?
I mean, I would love nothing more than to play drums on somebody's music. The only time I'll toot my horn about being a drummer is that I can play drums to give a song what it needs. There's a lot of drummers out there that do it. Brian Blade being one of them. Matt Chamberlain, one of my original heroes, being one of them. There's a way to play drums to help elevate the song instead of just keeping the song on tempo.
Agreed.
And I've spent a lot of time thinking about that and learning how to do that. And so, yeah, that would be, I would do that. Like that would be a part of my production offering, you know,
Right.
if you would, like, you know, like here's how this vibe can go, or here's how the rhythm can play out. Emmylou Harris's record, Wrecking Ball, that was produced by Daniel Lanois, is an amazing example and a huge collection of drummers that pay homage to the song. You got Brian Blade, you have his brother Brady Blade, you've got Larry Mullen Jr. on there playing drums, and I think there's one other drummer on there that I can't remember. And just taking the drum parts by themselves are like just a whole song unto themselves, and then you add all the beauty that is Emmylou Harris and Daniel Lanois on top of it, and it's just incredible. And I think a lot of songs could be better if people paid more attention to the individual parts and how they make up the whole.
Absolutely.
And that's my focus. And as a drummer, I think I'm in a unique position. Well, let me say this a different way. As a drummer who also plays guitar and understands music theory, I'm in a different position, not just to be like, I got a great groove, but like pay tribute to the song and use the drums as just as melodic of an instrument as the guitar is. That was a really long way of saying yes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had an experience. I was in a prog band.
Yeah.
And I'm very much cut my teeth on John Bonham. I'm a solid, straight ahead type of drummer, and exactly what you're saying. You know, if the song just is 2 and 4, it's just hat and snare, then that's what it is. You know, and I'll sit there all day and just do that. But so it was a struggle for me to play in the prog recording because it was like they want you to play all the Neil Peart and Mike Portnoy licks and everything, and I'm like.
Right.
I just wanted to go, you know. So it's kind of the opposite effect in a sense. But you know, I totally agree with what you're saying, and looking forward to hearing some of your stuff too.
Right on. Me too. Looking forward to finishing some of my stuff.
Well, Mike, where can people that are listening, where can they find your professionalness? You have a music Facebook page, right?
I do. It's Mike Boutte Music on Facebook, Boutte, and it's just straight old Boutte on Instagram, just Boutte.
Okay, right on.
That's it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the great Mike Boutte, thank you for being here, buddy.
Yeah, man.
Hey, it's really great to hang with you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity.